Welcome to the Environmental and Water Resources podcast in the Civil Environmental Engineering Department at Colorado State University, brought to you by EWRI-CSU, where we get to know CSU professors, water environmental professionals, and learn about their work. I'll be one of your hosts today. My name is Ben Schote. I'm currently the podcast manager for EWRI-CSU, and I'm a PhD student in Civil Environmental Engineering, focusing in hydrologic science and engineering.
My name is Jumana Jafari. I'm pursuing a PhD in environmental engineering at CSU, and I'm a member of EWRI-CSU. Today, we're speaking with my advisor, Dr. Sybil Sharvelle. Sybil is an associate professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at CSU. She received her bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Colorado. She received her PhD in civil engineering from Purdue University. Her dissertation focused on waste gas and gray water treatment using a biofilm reactor for long duration space missions. Recently, she's been one of 4 professors to be awarded the 2021 Wesley W. Horner Award by the American Society of Civil Engineers, Environmental and Water Resources Institute for her work on urban water management. She's the lead principal investigator of the National Science Foundation Interdisciplinary Training, Education and Research in Food, Energy, and Water Systems, also known as InTERFEWS. So, Sybil, thank you for speaking with us today. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So to get going, I know we kind of read off some of your background, but if there's any other relevant background, academic or just general, is there anything else you'd like to kind of share, let us know about?
Sure, I can just talk a little bit about my area of research focus, which is, I would describe broadly as resource recovery, which for me includes topics ranging from water reuse and water recycling, use of alternate water sources, to recovering energy, nutrients, and other valuable products from waste materials and wastewaters.
That's really cool, and I'm gonna get into this a little bit later, I think, but especially with your focus on the InTERFEWS now, this kind of like systems approach seems to really permeate through all of your work.
Mm-hmm.
So we would like to start with some fun questions to get things rolling. What is your favorite genre of music, band, and what you've been listening to lately?
Okay, those vary quite a bit from what my favorites are and what I've listened to lately. So,
yeah, that's usually different, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if I have a favorite genre, but if I have to pick a favorite group, maybe even Simon and Garfunkel. I really like listening to Simon and Garfunkel. I enjoy a lot of classical music as well. But I definitely like music from that era of kind of the 60s that kind of has a little mellow feel to it. So yeah. Oh, and then so that's what I really like to listen to. What I often listen to, unfortunately, is the music of my children. I've got a 11-year-old and a 15-year-old, and so I'm often listening to their pop music, which is not necessarily my favorite, but we've been always able to coalesce on a couple of artists that we all like together. Yeah.
Yeah, so have you been able to transmit to them some of the music that you love, kind of get them used to it, or not?
No. I think that's impossible, maybe until they're in their 20s, I will guess.
Yeah. So what's your first concert or memorable event?
Okay, so that's a funny one. The first concert I went to, I remember going to anyway. I think I was around 18. My parents weren't too fond of me going out to concerts. So when I was 18, though, I remember that, so I went to see Pearl Jam. Do either of you guys know Pearl Jam?
Yeah.
Ben, do you?
Pearl Jam was my first real my first real concert as well, actually.
No way.
Yeah.
How
In
old
Nashville, Tennessee.
How old were you?
Like 16 or 17.
Okay, so it was later days of Pearl Jam then.
Yeah.
Had to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was a big deal because I grew up in West Lafayette, Indiana, where Purdue University is, and we did not get bands. Oh, look at that. So,
my coaster.
And this was like, so this would have been about 1998, which is like the heart of the grunge era. We were definitely in the grunge era. And so Pearl Jam, I grew up in West Lafayette, Indiana. We got very few music groups that came ever for concerts there. And there were not very many venues, but Purdue had Elliott Hall of Music, which was hosting Pearl Jam, which was essentially unheard of to have a band like that come through. And I can remember it was a really big deal in our community, especially at that time, because Pearl Jam was very popular at that time, and it was pretty limited seating in there. So everybody was talking about how were they going to get tickets, and it was kind of this system where you went and got in line, and then they randomly picked a spot in line to start with. And I can remember my younger sister got there at like 4 a.m. or something, and was waiting there. She was up at the front of the line and she was 16. And I got there probably just 30 minutes before they were going to pick the point in line. And they ended up picking pretty late in the line. So I ended up getting a ticket. That was a big deal. But I was nice and you could buy 2 tickets. I brought my sister with me because she was so disappointed. So that's kind of a fun concert memory, actually.
Definitely. That's awesome. I relate to that a lot because my older sister actually, I guess it's a few years ago now, but they had a Seattle reunion show. And my sister is like 10 Club, like loves Pearl Jam. And she actually paid to take me out, like for me to go to the concert. So my sister
nice.
got me in, yeah.
So you have an appreciation of her for a Pearl Jam event as well.
Very much so, yes.
What are your hobbies, Sybil, these days? What are you doing?
Hobbies. I have a lot of hobbies that I like to engage in. I do play tennis, and I play in a USTA league, and that's really fun, in a women's league. And so I really enjoy that. But in addition to that, I also enjoy any outdoor activities I can get around to: hiking, biking, skiing, snowboarding, cross-country ski, whatever I can do outside, I absolutely love.
You are really active.
Yeah. I try to be, but I don't have enough time. But as much as I can, I try to be.
Yeah, that's good. So I think now we're going to move to what's, in my opinion, the most important question in the interview. What's your favorite restaurant in Fort Collins? And like favorite food to eat and to cook?
Okay. So favorite restaurant in Fort Collins, I think I would go with the Austin's downtown. Not maybe even because of the food, but I just really enjoy sitting out on their patio. It's kind of in the heart of downtown, and just watching people go by. I just enjoy that experience, and kind of that's something that our family really loves to do. When we have a little bit of free time, it's a Friday or Saturday night or even a weeknight that we want to go do something fun together, we really enjoy to go to Austin's and sit on the patio there. And the food is good too, but I think I enjoy the experience there probably even more than the food. The food I like to cook is probably honestly the foods that everyone in the family likes. And I think that the first one that pops into my mind that I know that everyone likes in our family is chicken piccata, which is an Italian chicken dish with lemon sauce. Everyone really enjoys when I cook that food and looks forward to it. And I like it also.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah, and so what activities do you like to do around Fort Collins?
Well, I think I just mentioned the Austins. That's something I like to do. And the hikes local hikes we have using the bike paths. walking around downtown.
Downtown.
It's always fun. Seeing all the interesting people, and yeah, those are my favorite things to do. I really enjoy the bike paths around town though. That's really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate the bike paths for fun and just practically getting around town. They're really handy as well.
Yeah, and it's nice with having kids that there's actually, because I'm not too comfortable with them riding bikes on a lot of busy streets, but there's a lot of accessibility for them on bike paths that I can feel comfortable with them going pretty good distances without having traffic trouble. So yeah.
Awesome. You do have a lot of really fun activities that I also enjoy. For now, let's move on a little bit and talk about maybe your academic and professional interests. I guess first, just how do you broadly characterize kind of your field of expertise? Maybe if you meet someone new and they ask, what do you do? How do you go about explaining that to them?
Yeah, I think I probably started there with the description of the broadly that I do research on resource recovery, and I described the energy, nutrient recovery, and all of those kinds of things. Then you mentioned kind of the systems level thinking, and that's always been an interest for me in everything that I've done. I really enjoy kind of thinking about connectedness of different systems and how we can make our systems holistically more efficient.
Cool. Yeah, so I think this is a good point to dive into that a little bit more maybe. So I noticed, for example, your PhD dissertation is focused on long duration space flights in this kind of very small scale system, you could say, very finite, closed system. And now you're heavily involved with the InTERFEWS, for example, which varies a lot in scale and application, but I know you're involved with some very large scale systems now as well. And maybe I was wondering if you could just say something about how the approach, despite the scale, is kind of similar just in framing inputs, outputs, maybe waste products or
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I got into what I got into because I was really interested in closed loop systems and recycling and resource efficiency. Those were the primary drivers. And I got into that project for my PhD, and I did research in my master's as well on systems for long duration space missions, because I grew up wanting to be an astronaut. And my interests kind of diverged a little bit from that directly, but I always held that kind of passion for space exploration. And so when I found a way to integrate my interests in closed loop systems and system efficiency with also supporting space missions, that was just a really nice fit for me that I was really interested in. I loved doing that research and being part of those programs. It was just I have a lot of good memories from that time. So anyway, I think that I've been able to kind of delve deep into components of systems, but I always kind of thought about, for example, I worked on a water recirculation system for my master's for the International Space Station. And then for my PhD, we were working more toward a long duration space mission, like a mission to Mars. But I always was thinking about how that would link with other systems in the full space mission, and particularly those related to advanced life support. And my PhD gave me actually a very nice opportunity. Again, I had the deep dive into the reactor system and components of the system that I was working on, but that project I was part of, NSCORT, which I'm not going to remember what that stands for at this particular moment in time. But it was a center at Purdue. There were 21 PIs that was dedicated to research on advanced life support for long duration space missions. So it gave me a really amazing opportunity to connect with all of the different components. So we had people working on the solids waste treatment system. We had people that were working on how to grow plants. And then people who were working on the nutrition for our astronauts, and then what kind of food waste would be generated from those. And it was just a really multifaceted kind of interdisciplinary project. I'm sure that shaped me quite a lot in my interests and kind of how I've grown into being the PI for this food, energy, water program, and finding connections and interdisciplinary collaborations there.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's just really fun to see, or just really impressive. I don't know what the right word is. It's just really cool, at least to me, to see you kind of spanning these scopes and scales, and able to find this like really common, systems-based approach to kind of all the different problems. I really appreciate that.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. So I guess more kind of down to earth. On a daily basis, when you come into work, is there anything in particular that's really getting you excited these days, or really keeping you motivated?
I think, I'll just say, I think the thing that excites me most really is students and mentorship of students and interacting with students. And as soon as the pandemic hit, that was the first thing that was really hard for me, was not getting to see my students or any students in person. I really struggled with that quite a lot. I can remember pre-pandemic, I'll admit to having gotten annoyed sometimes it knocks on my door. But as soon as the pandemic hit, all I could think about was, why can't I get one of those knocks on my door with the surprise question of the day about how to do something or how to handle a certain problem or whatever. And just, kind of helping students solve problems and helping them to grow. That's what I really love. I also have a lot of passion for the research that I do, and thinking about closed loop systems and resource efficiency, and so that excites me. But I think I probably pre-pandemic I would have answered with the research question, and post-pandemic I've really recognized that my interaction with students is really what fuels me.
That's awesome. And yeah, it's interesting how the pandemic has really shifted perspective. I think even small things like having to walk from building to building on campus. I used to be like, gosh, now I have to go walk over here. But now I just miss those little in-between moments where I'm just walking somewhere, for example.
Absolutely. I've been back on campus a little bit and walking over to campus and walking over to class and things when I have my teaching. And that just the kind of level of reset you can get from those little 10-minute walks. And our campus is kind of filled with some nature you can enjoy, and again, seeing people and just distracting your mind a little bit for even 7 minutes walking between some buildings.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So following up on what Ben was saying, is there any specific project or two from your past or yet to come that gets you excited or that characterizes your work?
Mm-hmm. So my PhD research and being involved with that NASA center was really memorable. As I said, I was not PI for that. I just was able to walk into that as a student. In my career postgraduate, when I think about kind of the projects or efforts I've been engaged in that have been most rewarding and exciting for me, there's my participation in the National Research Council panel for beneficial use of gray water and stormwater. That was a very amazing experience for me because I was able to interact in this panel of world-renowned experts on gray water and stormwater and contribute and have really interesting conversations and dialogue to help advance both gray water and stormwater systems and identify where the challenges were and opportunities were as well. So that was really something memorable for me, not just because of those interactions, but also because we were able to kind of formulate a set of conclusions that then led to my involvement in National Water Research Institute panel, where we developed guidance for decentralized non-potable water systems. And that is particularly rewarding because that's been used to guide now regulations nationally. So I feel like that's an area where I've really made some impact, and it all stemmed from the original participation in the National Research Council panel that then led to those future efforts, and states are continuing to adopt the guidance that we developed through that effort. So that's been just a really rewarding part of my career, and seeing more of kind of decentralized water recycling systems coming in place, or systems that use alternate water sources. It's just been really exciting.
Yeah, I would say that part of your work particularly was impactful, because often you see a lot of promising research that just doesn't go anywhere or is not applied. But I witnessed that firsthand. States are using that research to alter their guidelines. So yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is great. I feel like that's kind of the ultimate goal. I'm wondering if hopefully this is okay to ask, but I'm wondering about kind of university incentives and how getting some research, having research that becomes applied in some actual regulation or an actual society. Is that incentivized at all through like the university system?
I would say that there are constituents in universities that really value those kind of contributions, but there's also a lot of just kind of looking toward the very conventional metrics of number of publications, funded research projects, and some of those efforts, for example, that I've been involved with did not result in peer-reviewed manuscripts. Some of them were in addition, but definitely there was a large time input that I put into those efforts that have been valued by some and maybe not by others as much. I think that a lot of universities, including CSU, are working toward developing language and codes and things that works to incentivize and promote that type of work, that potentially engagement work is kind of how the university refers to it. So I think we're seeing a lot of advancement in appreciation and recognition of the value of that type of work. But it is challenging to take that on with the current incentive system at CSU, but I always, at universities in general. I, though, have always kind of tried to follow my heart and my passion and do what I feel matters for me. And it's really important for me to feel that I'm having impact. And I think that certainly that impact has been recognized at CSU.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely deserves to be. Yeah, it's really cool. And I think just that you highlighted as one of the couple of projects to mention really says a lot of how much it meant to you.
Mm-hmm.
So within your field or kind of your area of expertise, are there any specific issues that you consider to be most pressing or most critical to address in the near future?
I think that it's really, if I have to think about that, it's really the integration of our technical knowledge with the social sciences and policy and economics. So many of the issues that we are facing now are not because we don't have technical solutions to solve them, but because implementation of those technologies is hindered either by kind of social preferences, some sort of policy challenges, or it's difficult to justify financially, but then when we can really more broadly look at economics and kind of co-benefits and how we quantify those things, then we could see that there's really a broader economic benefit to some of these solutions. And so I really think that the challenges that we're facing now are in integrating our technical knowledge with those other fields around social sciences, policy, and economics, which has of course also been a huge driver of what the goal is of our InTERFEWS program.
Yeah, definitely. I guess you mentioned the InTERFEWS where you're actively working to train young researchers about how to address these. Is there any, maybe a couple pieces of advice you could give young researchers about how to really address that need to integrate the different disciplines?
Yeah, I think that the best advice I can give is only how I have at least improved my ability to think about these problems from those perspectives, is to talk to everyone you can, talk to faculty in different departments, talk to as many stakeholders as you can, have challenging conversations on various topics and how to solve different problems. And as much as you can talk to different people, I think it helps you to have perspective on what the broader challenges are, as well as potentially how to solve those.
Yeah, so with regard to these challenges, one way that you mentioned is trying to do these cost-benefit analyses so that you can convince policymakers to make a shift. But even that in of itself has a challenge that not all benefits are quantifiable. So have you been working on that in terms of environmental benefits and social benefits?
That is the large challenge, is trying to quantify different benefits. And there's ways we can even monetize benefits, but you can have one research group monetize the benefits in one way, and then another research group comes up with a completely different value. And so there's a lot of uncertainty in those types of analyses. And I think we have to just continue to search for methods and use many different methods, as many as possible, together to try to find ways to quantify. And we've multi-criteria decision analysis and use of indicators is one way, and there's ways to quantify those, but again, there's some subjectivity there. But I think ultimately when we can use multiple different methods and demonstrate our results in multiple ways and keep working to improve these methods for analysis of benefits, I think that we just have to keep working on that and keep improving how we can do that.
Yeah, to develop some kind of consistency in methods eventually. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question really related to Jemana's question about quantifying benefits. I'm curious if you have a feeling for, I keep going back to this idea of scale and scope, I guess, but I'm wondering about kind of regionalization, and if maybe different regions globally or even, you know, within a state, my different preferences, social preference might lead to the need for different ways to quantify these things in the different areas. And yeah, I guess, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think, first of all, understanding the drivers and the issues on a regional basis is really critical. So I know in one of my presentations that's on urban water systems, I kind of pull up this map and talk about drivers and issues in the different regions of the United States as they relate to urban water systems. And so as we develop these frameworks to better kind of understand different benefits and performance in terms of indicators. It's really important to start, I think, with what the drivers and the issues are and stakeholder perspectives, which are definitely different in different regions as we think about these issues. So I think we can think about even, frameworks that guide us through processes to help identify, what are the regions that we need to be thinking about as we think about these problems, and then helping to identify some of these key early steps of understanding stakeholder perspectives, understanding the issues and the drivers for decisions that are specific to that area. These things can't be broadly applicable, but probably there's frameworks and approaches that can work across different regions and be tailored to meet the needs of those particular regions.
Cool. So that sounds like aiming to have global frameworks that are flexible enough to allow local adaptation.
Well put. That was a good summary.
Cool. Yeah. I guess just a couple other follow-ups. We've mentioned stakeholders a couple times. Would you maybe take a second and just elaborate on, when you say stakeholder, who or what entity you're kind of really have in mind? Like, what does stakeholder really mean?
Yeah. So stakeholder means any individual or group that is impacted by a particular decision. So stakeholders are generally very broad, and any individual or group that could be impacted by a particular decision, process, technology being put in place is considered a stakeholder. So we have decision makers, which are also stakeholders, but we also have then the stakeholders that that are impacted by those decisions that are made. And the stakeholder groups across different decisions vary substantially, and there's regional considerations as well there.
Very cool. Jemana, I believe you're in Jordan speaking to us right now, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm curious about your opinion, if you have one, on if you were to bring up the idea of stakeholder in Jordan and then bring it up like here in Fort Collins, Colorado, do kind of the same type of people come to mind, or are there very different stakeholders you think in the different areas?
So I actually worked on a project that involved input from stakeholders in Jordan. And that project was about the use of gray water for irrigation. And we had input from stakeholders at the village where that system was implemented, social groups, community leaders. These are people who would be affected by that project, and also people who has an effect on that project. And that includes members of the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Irrigation. So it is technically the same definition, and you would be thinking about the same group of people.
Cool. Sounds like a really cool project that you worked on.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Cool. One last kind of question before we kind of really start wrapping up, I guess. But I know you're like, knee deep in the InTERFEWS project and all of that right now. I guess not necessarily project, but that entire, I guess, organization. Yeah, program.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you take a minute to just comment on that, how it's been, how it's changed your perception, if at all. And if you just want to say anything about the program, at all, feel free to.
Sure. We've mentioned InTERFEWS a couple of times, but yeah. I'll kind of just describe what it is, which is a graduate research training program funded by National Science Foundation. Our particular program is focused on food, energy, water problems and issues, but really looks at kind of intersecting technical solutions with policy and economics. So it's very interdisciplinary by nature. My engagement in this program has been extremely rewarding for me, because it gives me the opportunity to learn every single day, which is my favorite, one of my favorite things about my career choice is that I get to learn new things every day. And this program has really given me that opportunity in a new way. I learn so much from the students that are part of the program. I learn from the other faculty. We have a group of professional partners that we engage in, and I'm learning from them all of the time. And I just feel that that program has expanded my mind in new ways and introduced me to so many new concepts and disciplines and more details about those that have been really interesting and fun to be involved in. I said I learned from the students. We bring in students from engineering, social sciences, the School of Agriculture, so soil and crop science, economics, and all of the students just have so much to offer to the program. And it's just really interesting to watch how the students learn from each other. But then again, I have the opportunity to learn from all of these different students and engaged in different research topics and across different disciplines. And definitely for me, the most rewarding part of this program is watching the student interactions. It's really fun to see how you guys all work together.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about that program, even though I'm not a member of it, is that you open some of the seminars for other environmental engineering students. So back when I was in Fort Collins before the pandemic hit, I attended a couple of these seminars, and they were really fun, and you get to learn about other people's perspectives, especially people with background in agriculture and economics. They give you different perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. And that's been really a joy, is to kind of just bring all these people from across campus with different expertise and perspectives, and to have that kind of engaging learning environment. And I find sometimes our workshops, there's in this time, I have to admit that sometimes going to yet another Zoom meeting is not top priority for me, but some of the web meetings that we've been able to host through InTERFEWS have been, because of the kind of interaction we have, the group of students and faculty that are engaged, I've found them to be really just mentally stimulating and kind of refreshing during this time of somewhat mundane, can be somewhat mundane daily activities.
Yeah, I 100% agree with all of that. As a trainee in the InTERFEWS program, I just echo everything that you said. I love that you appreciate watching the student, like seeing how the students interact and everything. Because as a student that's gone through the classes and the in the program, it's definitely I would say one of the highlights of my graduate school experience in general, the program as a whole, but also just interacting with the other trainees and really learning those other perspectives. And it really like moved me from a space where, I think this idea of interdisciplinary work and collaboration sounds cool, to this space where not only does it sound cool, but I actually maybe have a little bit of a understanding of how that interdisciplinary collaboration might be created and performed. And yeah, I guess I would just say thank you so much for that entire InTERFEWS thing. I know there's a lot of people involved, but it's just been really beneficial to my entire experience in grad school.
Yeah, well, thank you to students like you, and even those that participate peripherally, for the level of the program is nothing without all of you guys, and the level of enthusiasm that you guys all bring for learning. That just that motivates me every day. And I'd say I have a hard time thinking about how I would have dealt with this pandemic and the absence of at least having the little spark of InTERFEWS and the faculty and students that are engaged in that program, and all of the enthusiasm that they've brought.
Yeah, it's really great. Really great program. If anybody's listening, you should Google it and check it out.
Yeah, now you're making me wish that I started when the interview started, not before. So I was like, I'm not a part of it now.
I think we have some open meetings online coming up potentially that you might be able to, that you should definitely come chat with us.
Yeah, we were just having like smaller group meetings previously. But then we've opened, because I kept thinking things were going to resume to normal. I guess I'm more optimistic than I should be. So I kept thinking, oh, we'll just get back to having broader meetings once we get to normalcy. And then I realized normalcy wasn't going to happen for a long time. So then we started opening back up our meetings again. So Jumana, there are some coming up that I think are really have cool topics that they're on as well. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna start kind of asking a few wrap-up questions. So I know we kind of touched base on, you gave some advice for how young researchers can really address these specific issues we mentioned, but would you be able to give any just more general advice to young current or future researchers and scientists thinking maybe undergrads all the way through PhDs? Just any pieces of advice maybe you wish you had known or that you would give?
I think if I had to give a piece of advice, it would be to not be afraid to delve into anything new. Don't, believe, have confidence in yourself and what you can achieve, and don't steer away from topics or learning new things because you're thinking it's not just quite in your field and maybe it takes you out of your comfort zone. Always go out of the comfort zone. That's something that really expands people's capacities, I think. And when you do that, understand what your limitations are, and don't, you need to be cautious of overclaiming your expertise in particular areas. That's a different thing than not being afraid to delve into a new topic, and then consult with experts and make sure. So do it by being humble and recognizing that you may not have had the best approach, and take advice from those that perhaps have some more expertise on those topics, and seek those individuals. But don't ever hesitate to get engaged in something new that takes you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I would say that's a great advice, because when I first started, I had experience with gray water, and I liked your experience in gray water, so I expected that we would be working on that. That's what I wanted to work on.
Right.
But I also did this thing where I said to myself, okay, I have to get out of my comfort zone, because I'm a person who likes routine, and I just stick to my routine and do that. And I started working on something else different, which is stormwater. And now I'm glad that I got into that, because I learned so much about it.
Yep, you have. And it's been great. And I also didn't have very much knowledge of stormwater before I came to CSU. And I worked a lot with Larry Rossner when I came to CSU, and that helped me to gain some confidence. Again, I have to recognize I have limitations in that area because it's not where I have extensive background, but we have to not be afraid to learn these new things, and then consult the experts in the area when we're unsure of things.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful advice, and I will take that to heart, and for myself too. And I actually wrote down, always go out of your comfort zone. Like reminder to self.
Yeah, really important.
Especially during the pandemic, this is my comfort zone.
Yeah, it's more challenging in this pandemic kind of living, where I personally have felt, there have been times, I feel that I'm coming out of this, but there's been times where I felt like all I could do was to just achieve the minimum tasks every day. And I didn't feel like I was doing my part to go above and beyond. But I think everyone's experienced their own challenges during this pandemic time, and we will all be stronger for it in the end.
Definitely. And
I
it
agree.
does feel more and more like there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel.
There's a buzz. There's kind of an energy around. So I was talking about the we like to go to Austin's. We went there last Saturday for the first time in forever and sat on the patio, and there were a lot of people downtown, and there was just a definite buzz in the air. It just an energy. It felt really good.
Yes, it feels great along with the sunshine.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to learn more about you and your research, what's the best way to go about that?
Definitely check out the various websites, Urban Water Center, InTERFEWS, and One Water Solutions Institute. But happy also, of course, always to meet with people. I would come say to knock on my door, but if we can't quite do that yet, if you're watching this post-pandemic, then maybe you can. In the interim, it's best to send an email, and don't be afraid to send 2 or 3 because my inbox gets a little cluttered.
Sounds great. And is it okay for us to put your email up with this video? Yep. We'll also provide links to the Urban Water Center, InTERFEWS, and One Water Institute as well, in case people are interested. Awesome. Well, this has been a ton of fun. It's really great to see you both. Jemana, I haven't seen you in probably over a year, so it's just really great. I'm thankful for the technology allowing us to be on different parts of the planet and speaking.
I know that's also, I think, one of the silver linings of COVID is that we have figured out ways to get more connected easily. So that's a good thing.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Sybil, for joining us today. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely good.
It was like a little break of my day.
Perfect. Same, yes. So thank you, listeners, for joining the Environmental and Water Resources podcast in the Civil Environmental Engineering Department at Colorado State University, brought to you by EWRI-CSU. Be kind.